January 2026 meeting to order. Again, good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year. I hope this new year will be the best and most blessed so far for each of you. So I guess we can take roll, even though we only have 2 members, but let's go ahead and do that, please.
Sure, no problem. Chairperson Villa-Gomez,
Present.
Mr. DeRaw,
Present.
Mr. Fanay, Ms. McNeil, Ms. Williams requested an excused absence, Ms. Rodney, and Ms. Wooders.
Thank you. Well, since we cannot vote on anything, we cannot approve our last minutes, I'll go ahead and provide updates. So I had hoped we could have a vice chair discussion. It would be my hope that we could eventually elect a vice chair from either our newer members who will not be rotating out. So either Miss Kimberly or Miss Camille, if they would be willing. I think putting a vice chair in place. We had a wonderful vice chair, Annette Wilson was so active and contributed wonderful leadership and support. So if we could hopefully get a great dynamic vice chair in place, possibly whatever the committee at that point would wish and vote upon. Once, of course, I rotate out, once I am replaced, then whoever's on the committee, I think, as everybody remembers, I was elected executive chair my very first day, and so whoever it would be, a vice chair could provide a great amount of support, or even possibly step into that role. So we'll have to table that till we have a quorum. The same thing with our subcommittee chair assignments. So with so many people who've rotated out and not having quorums, so that we could really have engaged conversations about who would want to step up into to lead each subcommittee. This is a very important issue, and I will keep working on this with the support of our director and councilperson Scipio, because I think we need to just celebrate and recognize and support the original framework and the original mission and vision of our commission. And so those subcommittee groups, if we can get them going with each commissioner leading those subcommittees, and ideally down the line, maybe having each of those members lead a community collection event. We could have our civic subcommittee member maybe lead an event somewhere in town in February, and then the arts person in March, and the church person in April, etc. If we could get a kind of rotation and get several places, several groups that would support us and would host us, that would be wonderful, because I think if we were consistent, and this was an argument that Miss Annette Wilson made frequently, if we could have regular standalone meetings where we're not supporting one of our anchor projects, but we're welcoming the community on a regular, I think, ideally on a monthly basis, somewhere that especially our elders would be comfortable, or able to travel to and feel comfortable in that place, I think then we could really make some great progress in creating our very important archive. We know there are so many wonderful stories out there from our elders and even younger folks who've grown up in town and grew up around their elders. And so we know that African American oral history archives are so precious, and they do take time and effort and energy and commitment to create, but they are among our most precious artifacts. And our community has a unique and precious story. So let's just hope and pray that we can get a quorum and we can get some active discussions going on this, and really come up with a plan. I know that everybody in human relations and councilperson Scipio, you've all been so supportive, and we have the equipment, we have your support from the city, from the offices, and if as commissioners can get that going, that would be great. So we'll see where we go. In the meantime, though, even though we have not really actively used our framework, our original framework, lots of great work has been done behind the scenes. Mr. Duran, Mr. Finney, as you know, um, not this I think it was last fall, the fall before 2025, fall of 2024, came to Winston-Salem State, and I was in their oral history sessions where they spoke with one another. It was quite engaging. And so it's my hope that we can, as many of you here have encouraged former or current commissioners to share their own stories, because we can come down to City Hall and have staff help us with that. We can have Mr. Flynn help us. We can get students involved to be the people who do the interviews. And so I'll continue to work with Mr. Dura and Mr. Finney behind the scenes, and hope that we can encourage other commissioners and our friends and family members. So that's a continuing discussion, but I think it's very important for us, as much as it's wonderful for us to partner with other projects and it gives us visibility. We also don't want to forget our mission and our commission from the city, which is to create that archive. And we have the wonderful connection with Digital NC and Winston-Salem State's archive. And so we have everything in place to build that archive. And you can trust me that as long as I'm breathing, even after I rotate out of the commission, I will continue to use what resources we have, and are very eager interns to continue to promote our mission and in a respectful way to our framework. So with that being said, just a few more announcements. With this coming spring, we're starting back on the 14th, and so we have a few new interns, and so definitely we will be working on the Kimberly Park neighborhood project. One intern will lead that, and I'll be supporting her. And then there's most likely going to be a project on sort of the history of African American women's beauty shops. Another new student who grew up here has deep, deep roots here She's planning to go to law school, but also do graduate work in history, and she's eager to do a project on sort of the history of women's beauty locally. Also, Mr. Flynn has encouraged us to think about maybe an anchor project on history of African American local involvement in NASCAR, because that could get people are interested in that. There's lots of great stories. There is at least one local citizen who has collected um, African American related memorabilia and photos, has great stories, and that would allow us to get more people in the community as well as other students beyond our program, and he's sort of excited about possibly leading that on our behalf. And then the other thing is we would like to organize a Miss Mady Halzuma Day. We already have done some extensive scholarship. Students have done some wonderful work on her. Mr. Finet actually was the one who thought about having an AAHI day or maybe General City Day dedicated to her. So we'll be continuing to work on that. The city of Durham actually had a wonderful event a few years ago in her honor. And she is one of the great leaders, really a world leader that did wonderful things locally and nationally, but globally as well. Such an inspirational person who came back home and lived out her life here after such a incredible life. And then the other thing is that I have several potential interns who could assist us possibly with the history of Black medicine and medical care and doctors and nurses. And this would sort of build off of what we had with our arts project and the Kate B. Reynolds Z. Smith uh, Reynolds Foundation um, sponsored project. So we had our local nurses, and Councilperson Scipio was actively involved in that project. And we now have a beautiful mural to commemorate that history. But I think that it could be a great project. So these students of mine who are in various sort of medical related majors and are just wonderful, wonderful people, they're interested in that. And so then my final update is about mapping prejudice, which continues to be quite robust with our history major interns. They're getting to review lots of these documents through the deed machine that the University of Minnesota set up for us. So they're not only looking for the racist covenant deeds, but they're also looking for evidence of, positive things that show how our community thrived, and things related to churches and Black businesses that are coming up in those documents. We have also been invited by different groups, including Delta Arts, to come and sponsor a mapping prejudice workshop. So Dr. Smith and I are working on that. But it does then I think that those upcoming events, of course, all commissioners, everyone is invited. But if any commissioner would like to host an event like that, in an alumni group meeting or a civic group meeting or at their church, we're still ready with lots of student support, really putting our students out there as the face of the project. And we have lots of active Wake Forest undergraduates involved in the project and Wake Forest Law. So it still remains a community-wide project. We have people from UNCG, UN School of the Arts, UNCSA, We've invited some Salem College faculty to join. So we'll see. It's a long project. And of course, you can trust that anytime I'm out there, one of these community events and workshops, I also stress who we are and what our goals are and our mission, etc. So it does give me the opportunity to really celebrate and promote AHI. Last thing I'll just say is that I think even though only two commissioners are here, I think it's important that we continue to keep our eyes and ears open along with Council Person Scipio to try to actively recruit people who would be committed, energetic members, future members of this commission. And so I will continue to do that anywhere I go. And it's my hope and prayer we will find some wonderful people to fill our positions and fill upcoming positions that where some of us will be rotating out. So that's my report, sort of two months or 3 months uh, worth of updates. But if there are any thoughts or suggestions or questions about anything I've just reported, I'm happy to engage you and answer any questions you have or brainstorm with you. Mr. Durrad, do you have any updates on the nuns from Saint Benedict or any other experiences? And you may have encountered some old friends or had some discussions with family members. Is there any way that I can support you and maybe following up where we could get some more oral histories?
One of the things that I think it's important to do is to create a theoretical framework for collecting the information we're interested in, in dealing with, so that we have a kind of a roadmap, an intellectual roadmap of what it is we want to do and how it is we want to get it accomplished. The two nuns that are still living that I know are in Allegheny, New York, and one of them is my first grade teacher, who is still living, and the other one is my fifth grade teacher, who's still living. Although I'm not sure that her faculties are necessarily reliable. I can follow up with my first grade teacher and sort of ascertain what her general health is and that sort of thing. The other thing that's available is there's a network of St. Benedict students who still live in Winston-Salem,
Mm-hmm.
and having some conversations with them would be an interesting way to bring in some things. There were several lay teachers who are teachers that are not in the nunnery, um, who who served at Saint Benedict and taught school at Saint Benedict, and were substitutes and that sort of thing. Um, so having some contact with some of the kids who went to Saint Benedict and who are still living would be a good thing. In another year and a half, I'll be 70 years old, and it doesn't seem possible, but there it is, ladies and gentlemen. So if we're going to be doing something, we should be doing that sooner rather than later, and
Right.
and trying to make some inroads. I mean, there are some younger Saint Benedict students. There's one that actually lives on the intersecting street in my neighborhood, and there are other Saint Benedict people who are sort of out there somewhere, and we could I'm a networker, so it never seems like that big a deal to me. But getting in touch with people and having them interested and want to participate is something that I'd be really interested in providing some elbow grease behind. So I'm willing to do that, and I'm willing to talk to the nuns that are that are still with us. And I have no idea about the order of Franciscan priests who served, where they are, any of that. That was always in the purview of whatever whoever the nuns were. And I only remember one priest, Father Moseline. He would have to be 140 at this point. you know. But I'm open to some conversations about how do we bring some structure to what it is we're out to collect data about, and how do we manage those data so that we get at the questions that we really want to have answered. Because if you're going to collect data, it ought to actually yield something useful. And I'm very interested in um, how to work with you and others to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Well, I think we actually do have more of a methodological and ethical framework than theoretical. And if we put our thinking caps together and use our collective memories, you might remember when we were appointed at the same time. It's been what, 5.5 years now. So I did introduce the best practices of oral history, those wonderful um, YouTube introductions. Councilperson Scipio did one on our behalf, Linda Dark, Annette Wilson. I think those provide their comments provide the rationale. So I I I do think that you and I, Mr. Finney, are the people on the commission who are trained historians and historical thinkers. So we've had the most experience in sort of dealing with evidence. The
I've
special
got a pro-
part
I've got a
of it,
problem with my phone.
oh, okay. I'm sorry. um, but we we're in really we have this wonderful opportunity to collect the evidence. I think that's our commission right now. And our main priority is to collect the evidence. And down the line, future people will be able to synthesize and interpret that evidence. I have been having students do some of that behind the scenes, um, but I think as commissioners, it's our real responsibility to collect that evidence. And I will just say for interviewing elders, and this is for across the world really, but definitely for our African American elders. Uh, One thing is we're talking about local context because we want to encourage them to provide their recollections and their experiences and thoughts on growing up here. So if we help during the interview conversations, to keep the conversations focused as much as possible on local experiences and events and sort of environments, etc., that helps. But the other thing is that there is an ethical component to what we're doing to oral history and public history, and that is that the emphasis is on the prioritization of the feelings and the sentiments and the well-being of the person sharing. And so not to prescribe too much. And I know in interviewing um, for example, Miss Evelyn Terry, um, and others at Juneteenth, once they get going, they start remembering wonderful things. And you don't want to sort of steer them back on script because they're sharing some very rich material. But we can definitely, as we initiate our conversations, we can come up with sets of questions, or we can ask the people we interview in advance if there are specific things they want to share with us. And then if not, we can help them by giving them questions to think about in advance, and yet also allowing them that freedom as they're thinking and remembering, and often really thinking about pleasant things. We also don't want to sort of traumatize people in asking questions that they might not want to answer about difficult things. And I think that right now is so important, as lots of literature, lots of new wonderful scholarship is coming out on African American history nationally from the colonial period until now, with the sense of creating those spaces of storytelling and narration in which African Americans are at the center and the forefront of the stories, and they're defining those frameworks and showing how they claim their own freedom and agency. And I think there's a push against all the stories of overly predominant emphasis on oppression and segregation, uh, because people also want to show the resilience and the contributions and the things that made Black life so beautiful. And I think that's written into our commission and our vision. And I I think that, we have that opportunity then to celebrate, and we want to eventually make sure we're creating that whole picture, so we're not creating an archive that is over and emphasizes the bad, and doesn't allow for the good. But we don't want to erase the difficult parts of our past. So we have our work cut out for us, and I see this as a very long-term project, but we really need to get it going. So I don't know if that helps with Mr. Duroff. That kind of helps with, I think we don't need to worry. You and I can think about the theoretical frameworks and bring Mr. Finet into those conversations, and kind of just think more about best practices and being ethical and respectful of our elders. Even as you and I are approaching, we're getting there. I don't know if we're quite elders yet, but we're getting there.
What's the lower age of elder?
I think it's pushing higher and higher, because I've read that people say that you're middle age until you're 80 now. So, but
I think it's 85, because I refuse to be an elder yet.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I'm having a problem being the matriarch of my family. That's
Yes, but you're still stubborn after all these years.
Yeah, well, is that the first symptom of being an elder? Being
Yes.
stubborn. Okay,
Yes.
well.
But you started that at age 9, as I recall.
Okay, well, you don't need to tell everything.
But that's a good thing. That my mother was the matriarch, and people miss her strength. So Councilperson Scipio, being stubborn is part of having a lot of strength too.
It's wisdom.
Wisdom, strength,
I
courage.
I prefer to think of it as firmly grounded as opposed to stubborn.
I like that. Firmly grounded. I like that.
Firmly grounded.
I
Yes.
That's
like
very
that
good.
too. That's very good.
That's very good.
I'm on your side.
Yes, I know. You better be.
No need to worry.
Mm.
Well, everyone, I don't know. I lapsed into my typical history professor mode. I hope I was not too boring. I sometimes hear my own monotone voice and think, "Oh, get out of there, girl." But I know that staff might have some suggestions or updates. I know we have an important update that our director shared with me, some things to celebrate with some wonderful, vibrant young people who are going to be honored, I believe, on January 20th at City Council meeting. But any thoughts, suggestions, ladies, that you want us to hear, and any updates?
Good afternoon, all. I do have a couple of updates, but I do have a question for Mr. Duroff.
Mm.
For St. Benedict's, are there any upcoming reunions or anniversaries or commemorations? Because that would certainly, we have found that it's better when we go to something that's already planned, because they're already in the space already, and we can just kind of prepare for that. So do you know if there's anything commemorative coming up?
None that I've heard anything about, but I haven't actually been out there beating the bushes to talk to people and see, kind of what's going on next. I can begin to do that and see, what folks are talking about and, what's upcoming. And I think that would be of use to us. So I'll be glad to begin to work on that. And I can let you know as soon as I find out some things that, are happening and like that.
And Bob, Mr. Dora,
Yes.
Cedric Russell would be a good person to check with because he keeps up with all of the St. Benedict stuff.
That's
Cedric.
because that's right.
Yes.
He's a former St. Benedictine.
Yes.
Yes. In fact, he was at St. Benedict while I was at St. Benedict. But he played on the varsity basketball team, and they won a conference championship.
Wow.
My first, I think I was in 5th grade when he was in 8th grade. So there's plenty of stuff to do, and I'll give him a call and see what's. He also went to Carolina, and I went to Duke. So we have this sort of back and forth.
So you could interview him. That would be, and then that would be sort of a conversational interview. That could be wonderful.
You design the protocol, and I'll deliver it. So I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
That would be. I just think that would be just something awesome for the city to have and people to attend anyway on its own. But that would certainly lend itself to being able to make sure people are present for the purpose of gathering that information.
I think that's right. And I also think that to go back to something Dr. Villagomez was talking about, we have to kind of come to some agreement on what a theoretical framework is. But at the end of the day, we ought to have a map for what's the information we're actually designed to ascertain, and that would be a part of. That's why I think that's important. I think it's wonderful to talk with some of my colleagues from St. Benedict because it allows me to refresh what happened while I was there. And I remember Cedric and Ken McFadden played on a basketball that won the conference championship. Where we played at the Red Shield Boys Club in Greensboro. So there's all kinds of things we could talk about and things we could take note of, and I'm happy to do that, and happy to involve others in being involved too. So I'll be talking with you guys about how to get that going.
And I think one of the things, Mr. Draw, we could do would be to ask people to share if what was it like studying at St. Benedict's? What do you remember? What is most valuable to you even now for what you learned and from being part of that community of students there? But then how did that prepare you when you went on high school and then when you went on to Duke? So there were lifelong I think lessons. And so if you think about in terms of historical causation, I think in some ways that's the theory, the theoretical framework or methodological framework. But also, if we go back to the ordinance that came out in spring of 2020, soon after you and I were appointed, we also have our sort of marching orders from city council beyond the frameworks established officially that we see on the websites. And that is that down the line, we do want someone or a group of people to write the city's official history of our local African American community. And again, the wording, I believe, it's been a while. I haven't memorized the wording in the ordinance, but it does talk about contributions. So if we think about making those connections between the experiences of our elders, just living life and interacting in their neighborhoods and Black churches and any kinds of sort of Black institutions and communal groups and being part of the greater community, what did they see? I mean, what were the contributions going on right then and there? What were the things to celebrate? Even as people might have been facing horrible racism in some ways. And then we can also ask them, how did those experiences make them who they are today? What's precious? So I know that I've read some wonderful narratives, for example. Interesting thing. Many of the former ballerinas of the Dance Theater of Harlem, who of course were trained by and then encouraged and promoted by the great Arthur Mitchell, they went on and they got PhDs at Temple, especially in dance history. And so some of them have taken one famous early Black ballerina and sort of told the story of that ballerina's local Black community through their experience of being a ballet dancer. So they told a bigger story beyond the sort of artistic life of that ballerina. And um and so there's sort of these multiple overlapping beautiful narratives. And so something like that, I think, could be done where we can highlight the contributions and the celebration and the beauty of Black life and community, but frame it in the context of um, all of the challenges and opposition. So in the end, I think it is a story of triumph and progress, and we're still getting there. But I in what I've been told by Black elders, there is a uniqueness here. We have a unique story, set of stories to share. But part of this will be what people want to share, what they're willing to share. So I don't know if that helps, but I do think we have enough to go by. I think city leadership has established a nice balance that is malleable. And so whoever is going to be in charge of these things down the line, I think they have a wonderful framework to work with. Oh, Miss Camille is with us now, which is wonderful.
I am. Happy New Year, blessings, and
Happy New Year!
love, peace, and soul, and all that to everybody. I'm so sorry I'm late.
No, it's wonderful to have you with us. Do you have any updates to share? We might be brainstorming a little bit longer and sharing, but we would love to hear anything that you have to share with us. And I am so delighted you're here.
I'm sorry I don't have any thing to share updates wise as it relates to our last meeting conversations on doing some connections with churches, and that's on the top of my to-do list for 2026 this first quarter, to connect with you to come up with a game plan for us moving forward. But I will comment on what you just said, and I was delighted to hear you contextualize the greater experience of individuals. I was thinking about that as we were celebrating the great Richard Smallwood, that there isn't a Richard Smallwood without a Roberta Flack, and there's not a Roberta Flack without a community, a church community that is nurturing her to grow into her gifts and talents. So we're not just this one-off experience, that it's in community that these gifts are celebrated and talented, and talents are nurtured. So thank you for making that comment, because there are bigger stories to tell with that. And I'll just give you an example of that with Debbie Allen. So Debbie Allen actually had relatives here in Winston-Salem and came to audition for the School of the Arts and stayed with her cousins in Winston while she was doing that audition. And of course she didn't get accepted, but that she had a place to come to, that she had a place to stay for that audition, and a place where she could cry and be encouraged to go do other things. So there are bigger stories to tell. So thank you for making that comment. How you doing, Annette?
Fine. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, my love.
Yeah. Glad you joined us, but it's time for us to end this meeting.
I understand.
Actually, I've got to go to another meeting. So, guys, love you much. We're going to have a great new year.
Yes.
And I will see you next time. Okay?
Thank
Sorry,
you, Council.
gotta go.
Have a great rest of your day and a great meeting. Thank you so much.
I do have a question.
Yes,
so,
Pastor.
I had a chance to actually see Mr. Fulton earlier today at the Y. So has he officially rotated off? What he said to me was that the meetings used to be at 6 o'clock, and because they got moved to 2 virtually, I think he has some other activity or something that he's involved with that prevents him from being on the meetings at 2 o'clock. So anyway, I just wanted to share that for what it's worth.
So we did have a discussion, and I wanted to thank you for responding to Miss Duncan's poll. And I think Mr. Finney as well, who's one of our really active and supportive committee members and sort of our lead oral history interview commissioner, he can't make it because of work and at this time. And so if we move to an evening meeting, and some people are saying 5:30, I actually worry that 5:30 might be a rush for some people to get downtown. But I think we're supportive. Mr. Dura as well, I think, is supportive of us moving it. I believe, as Ms. Carlin said, that people would like to stay with Wednesdays, but we'll see. And apparently some people would, and maybe this included you, that maybe doing every other month, so meeting virtually in the evening one Wednesday, and then the next month meeting face to face, especially as it gets warmer. it'll be easier for people not to have to drive in the dark and in the cold. So I think we're moving in that direction.
Okay.
But I wanted to thank you for your comment, and I was thinking too, we now have our newer dean of dance, Dean Endelyn Taylor, who came out of that wonderful cohort of Dance Theater of Harlem ballerinas. And I think, I'm a former ballet dancer. That was my original profession as well. And I was trained in San Diego and was only maybe one of 3 dancers of color. There was a Filipina, and then my classmate who was half Black and half Filipino, who ended up going on to dance with AAHI, and that was it in that whole huge city. But of course, being a church girl, I grew up around people dancing in church, and of course all the music in church. And we mentioned earlier today Miss Mady Hall Zuma, and her gifts as a musician and playwright and theater person were really nurtured within the church. I mean, her mother was a church lady. They sponsored a lot of things in the basement of their AME Zion church. So I think if again, going back to what Mr. Dara has suggested, if we can ask people to share stories, but if we also say, hey, we want to talk about, how your exposure to the arts, how your gifts in singing and musicianship or dance. I mean, some of our local churches still have really vibrant liturgical dance groups. And I think that could be just really wonderful, and hopefully people would have pictures, but I think that focus would be great. So if we can brainstorm and work on that. Mr. Dra also grew up and knows some people who are artists in various, I think maybe one actor or actress and at least one dancer who went on, so he might be able to get us connected to those folks as well.
If they're not dead.
Let's pray and hope they're not, or I guess hope that they're not. If they're dead, we're praying for them. It won't help, but
one of my classmates was Chris Morrell, and he's passed on, but he was a big musician and singer who went to St. Benedict. You know, a lot of folks that went to St. Benedict ended up in all kinds of occupations.
And I do see that both Miss Erica and Miss Carlin have their hand up. I'll just add this so I don't forget. But I remember during a conversation, not when I took her oral history, but Miss Evelyn Terry at the We Built This grand opening shared with me and one of my students that her mother was the organist at St. Benedict's, and so she was very ecumenical. She played all over the city in different churches on Sundays, and Miss Terry as a little girl would go with her mother, and she had fond memories of that. So that could be a fun thing for us to have her talk more about. But I'll defer now to Miss Erica. Did you have a comment?
Yes, I was going to say we're butting up against our time.
Okay.
But I just wanted to add that I have been in conversation with Kenneth Pettigrew at the Y. There was an update before about someone the Reach Center reaching out about coming down and to set up the times. I have not heard from her, but I reached out directly to him since he is I guess he's the executive director. So he is on board with that. It's just a matter of getting those times scheduled when everybody's available to do that. The second thing is I did get a personal contact from a lady named Annette Hayes. I think that is her name. And so she would like to make some submissions. She has documents and wants to do an oral history. So again, it's just a matter of setting that time up. And going back to Mr. Durrell, what you said about framework, we do have basic guides for questions. I did go to a conference this summer, a history conference, and I went to a workshop specifically on getting oral histories. And so that framework is there about what questions to ask and what information that we're trying to ascertain, in addition to encouraging them to talk about some other things maybe that we hadn't thought about. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, Ms. Erica. I know our former director, Wanda, reshared the best practices from, I think it's the National Oral History Association, and I had shared those with the whole commission maybe the second month right after I joined. But it might be time to revisit some of that.
Okay. So I will go back and look at that, see if it's been updated, and also pull from the workshop and get that out to you guys, so we have a good idea of what that really looks like.
Perfect. And then as more people request interviews, I do have our senior Keisha. She grew up in town. She wants to get her master's UNCG in public history and really work as an expert in African American oral history collection and archives. And so I think she would be, if one of the commissioners wouldn't be available or wouldn't necessarily want to do the interview, I think Keisha would be the perfect person. She's a little bit older. She has university age children and fond memories of being here. She is deployable for those kinds of sessions.
So I will reach out to you to get with her to see what her schedule looks like, and then we can go from there.
Perfect. Thank you. Ms. Carlin, I know we're pushing against time. You guys might have another meeting, but is there one last or a few last items that you need to share?
No, ma'am.
All right. Well, then I will just thank you all again. Have a blessed month. Happy New Year. If we keep Wednesday for our February meeting, then it will be February 4th, and we'll see what time we'll be meeting. So in the meantime, please reach out. Miss Camille, if you do not have my text, my phone number, I don't have your email right now. Otherwise, I would email you my number. But if Miss Erica or Miss Carlin could share my phone number, then please feel free to call me or text me, and we'll try to get together this month. That's at some point.
Okay, I can just send it by email. Your email is on our distribution, so I'll just email it to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, again, everyone, thank you so much. So we'll formally call our January 2026 meeting to a close. It's been a very productive meeting. Thank you for your contributions. I hope to see you all on January 20th for the celebration of our 2 young Black women who are receiving the MLK Award. So I hope to see you there, and see you next month. Take very good care.
You too.
Bye-bye.